So, in the last class, we are discussing about the six attributes of Dhamma. That what are the six attributes of the Dhamma? Before that, we had also discussed what are the qualities of a Buddha and what are the personality of a Buddha through which he is known as a Buddha. And we have seen that there are the 9 names of the Buddha through which he is also known as Bhagava, Arha, Samma Sambuddho, Vijacharan Sampanno, Sugato, Lokbuddhi, Purusudamba Sarati, Itipisu Bhagava. So we had seen that what are the personality and what were the factors of his personality so that he became very much popular among the common mass and how he preached his Dhamma at Dhamsak Pavatan Sutta and how he from village to village, city to city, and from Janpad to Janpad, as well as Mahajanpad to Mahajanpad also. And he preached his Dhamma for 45 years, and how his Dhamma became more popular among the Southeast Asian countries also. And in the last class, we had discussed that what are the qualities of a Dhamma, what is the meaning of the Dhamma, and what are the qualities of a Dhamma. We had discussed in our last class. So we had seen in our last class that Swakhato, Ehipasiko, Akaliko. So there are 5, 6 attributes of the Dhamma we had discussed in our last class, namely that Swakhato, Sandithiko, Akaliko, Ehipasiko, Opanekaiko, Pachattam, Vyuhi. So these are the 6 attributes through which Buddha is known as a Dhamma has became more popular. So Dhamma is nothing but in a technical sense it is called as a teachings of the Buddha. That is the Pariyatti, and how Pariyatti, that is the teachings of the Buddha, became more popular among the Southeast Asian countries, and how his teachings are more popular. So these are the 6 attributes through which we had discussed in our last class. So today we are going to discuss that in a spread of Buddhism, there were roles of his immediate disciples also. There were some persons who were very close disciples of the Buddha, and these close disciples took very care of how the Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha, that is the Pariyatti, became more popular among the masses. So in that way, they had done a great of service in popularizing the Dhamma as well as the teachings of the Buddha. So we are going to discuss in a very brief manner that how the teachings of the Buddha became more popular among the common masses. So we had seen that there were, if you go through the reading materials, then you will find that there were some persons who were very much close disciples of the Buddha, namely Sariputta, Mahamoggalan, Mahakassapa, Aniruddha, and others also. Before coming to these points, I would like to say that we are saying that Buddha classified the 4, you can say, divisions, namely Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasak, Upasika. So there were 4 persons through which Buddha classified the 4 divisions. As we know that there were 4 Varna systems, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaisyas, and Sudras. But Buddha gave the order of the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasak, Upasika. These were the 4 main. And the role of the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasak, and Upasika in popularizing the teachings of the Buddha, that is the Pariyatti, was very commendable. So we'll discuss that how the close disciples, namely Sariputta, Anand, Mahakassapa, Moggalan, Aniruddha, how they popularized the and what were the roles of the laity Upasak and Upasikas also in popularizing our teachings of the Dhamma or the teachings of the Buddha. So, as we know that Sariputta was one of the great disciple of the Buddha, and he is also called as Agga Savaka means that he was the chief among the all the disciples also. There were other Agga Savak also, namely Sariputta and Mogglan. Sariputta and Mogglan are also considered as chief disciples, and they were called as Agga Savaka. Agga Savaka means they were superior among all the close disciples also. Sariputta is also known as Dhamma Senapati because teachings of Dhamma, he is very much in the same manner what Buddha was teaching to the common mass. Sariputta was also able to preach the Dhamma in the same manner also. We have one sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, namely Sammaditthi Sutta. Sammaditthi Sutta is the ninth sutta of 152 suttas of Majjhima Nikaya. And ninth sutta is the Sammaditthi Sutta, in which Sariputta, who is also known as Dhamma Senapati, he preached the Sammaditthi. And in a very brief manner, what is the contribution of Sariputta? I will tell you in a very brief manner that he was teaching the Sammatiti Sutta in a very decent manner. And after hearing the teachings of the Sariputta, Buddha also responded, and he that was considered as the teachings of the Buddha also. And in Majjhima Nikaya, it was considered as the teachings of the Buddha also. Although this sutta was preached by Dhamma Senapati Sariputta. In Sammaditthi Sutta, there is a question that what is the Sammaditthi and who knows the Sammaditthi? In responding to that Sammaditthi, that what is the Sammaditthi? As we know that Sammaditthi is the first path of the eightfold path also. And these eightfold path, namely Sammaditthi, Samma Sankappo, Samma Vacha, Samma Kamanto, Samma Ajibo, Samma Vyamo, Samma Sati, Samma Samadhi. Out of eight, Sammaditthi is called as one of the main factor for knowing that things. Sammaditthi has been defined as Samma Dasanamati Sammaditthi, that one who visualizes the things in a proper manner or right manner, that is called as Sammaditthi. Right vision. Sammaditthi is the samyak drishti or right understanding or right vision also. Then there is a question in the Sammaditthi Sutta. I am not going to discuss in a very detailed manner, but in a very brief manner that the contents of the Sammaditthi Sutta. First of all, that what is the Sammaditthi? It is said that yo kusalam chapajanati, kusal mulam chapajanati, akusalam chapajanati, akusal mulam chapajanati, etta vatta pikhu arya saab ko Sammaditthi hoti. That one who knows the kusala, that is the moral dhammas, one who knows the roots of the moral, that is the kusala mula, one who knows the akusala, that is the immoral actions, and one who knows the roots of the immoral actions, he is in the possession of the right understanding or samadhi. Again, further Sariputta says that one who knows the ahar samuday, ahar nirodha gamini patipada, and These one who knows that there is a ahar, meal, there is a cause of meal, there is a cessation of meal, and there is a path which leads towards the cessation of ahar, meal. He is in the possession of the Sammaditthi. Again, further, Dham Senapati Sariputta says that one who knows the Four Noble Truth, that Dukkham Arya Satcham, Dukh Samuday Arya Satcham, Dukh Nirodham Arya Satcham, Dukh Nirodham Arya Satcham, Dukh Nirodha Gamani Patipada Arya Satcham, he is in the possession of the Sammaditthi. That one who knows that there is a suffering, there is a cessation, there is a cause of suffering, there is a cessation of suffering, and there is a path which leads towards the cessation of suffering. He is in the possession of the right vision or right understanding, that is the Sammaditthi. Further, Sariputta says that one who knows the cessation of the 12 links of the law of dependent originations, that with the cessation of the Jaramaran, there is a arising of the bhav. Like that, there is a 12 links which have been discussed in Anulomana and Patilomana. One who knows the 12 links of the law of dependent origination, he is in the possession of the right vision or right understanding, Sammaditthi. Lastly, Sariputta says that one who knows the asav, asav samuday, asav nirodha, asav nirodha gamani patipada, that one who knows that there are intoxicants, there are the causes of intoxicants, there are cessation of the intoxicants, and there is a path which leads towards the cessation of intoxicants. Asavas are those immoral factors which bind a person in the sense of not allowing our mind on to arise on the moral dhammas, and due to this one does not meditate himself, and they are four in number: kamasav, bhavasav, ditthyasav, and avijjasav. They are four in number, but in suttas there are only three types of asavas: kamasav, bhavasav, and ditthyasav. Avijja asav comes in the later Abhidhammic text. So, in that way, Dhamma Senapati discusses about the in a very detailed manner that what is the Sammaditthi. If you remember the contribution of Sariputta, we find that the Abhidhamma, the origin of the Abhidhamma relates with the disciple, great disciple Sariputta. As we know, and we know that first of all, Buddha preached his teachings of the Abhidhamma to his departed mother, Mahamaya, at Tavati Loka. And from coming there daily in the evening at Anutah, at Kasia, near Manpuri of Uttar Pradesh, he used to meet Sariputta, and he used to give the teachings of the Abhidhamma, what he already taught to Mahamaya, his mother, in Tautin's Loka. And Sariputta, after getting those teachings of the Abhidhamma from the Buddha at Kasya, he used to give it a succession of teachers, that there are Sonaka, Uttinaka, and there are a great succession of teachers. That from Sariputta was the first person who received in person the teachings of the Abhidhamma from the Buddha, and he popularized the teachings of the Abhidhamma. And whatever we know the teachings of the Abhidhamma, it is the due contribution of Dhamma Senapati Sariputta. Sariputta was the person who first of all learned the teachings of the Abhidhamma directly from the Buddha, and he preached to his disciples also. And from his disciples, there is a great succession of transfer of Abhidhamma to successive teachers also. So this is the great contributions. And for a successful teacher, there is a great contribution of his disciples also. So in that way, in a spreading of the teachings of the Buddha to the common mass, the contribution of Sariputta is the great one. So in that way, we know that Sariputta was the main person who contributed or who spread the teachings of the Abhidhamma and the other suttas in the Majjhima Nikaya, which were preached by Sariputta. There are more than 5, 7 suttas which were preached by Sariputta himself, and they were responded by our Tathagat, the Buddha himself. And since they were responded by the Buddha, they are also considered as the teachings of the Buddha, and they were included into Majjhima Nikaya. So in that way, we know that later on, the Abhidhamma Pitaka, how the 7 texts were came into existence, and how with the succession of the teachers at the time of King Asoka, fifth book of Abhidhamma Pitaka Kathavattu was also preached. So till here, Third Buddhist Council, there are the great succession of the teachers from the Sariputta. So in that way, Sariputta was the main person and main disciple who contributed in the spread of Buddhism by spreading the teachings of the Buddha related with Abhidhamma. Second, we are discussing Moggalan. Sariputta Moggalan, they are also called as Aggasavaka, the chief disciples of the Buddha. And they were also having the, you can say, Riddhij, miraculous power. Abhinya, there are 6 kinds of intuitive knowledge also. So Moggalan was having the 4 Iddhipadas also. That may Dev Chakhu, Dev Sukta, Parachit Bijanan. So there are 4 types of, you can say, riddhis or the miraculous power, the great persons who are also. And Buddha was also a very miraculous power. And sometimes he also used to give the, you can say, teachings related with the miraculous power also. And sometimes he had exercised these miraculous power to the common mass also. So Moggalan was superior in Idhipat. That is the, you can say, having the power of miraculous powers. And in that way, he became very much a great disciple of the Buddha, and he preached the teachings related with the intuitive knowledge as well as miraculous power to the common mass also. And he also asked that not to exercise this miraculous power to the common people, but only for understanding the teachings of the Buddha. These miraculous power may be used or something like that. So he was also one of the foremost disciple, Moggalan, in spreading the teachings of the Buddha. And in that way, Buddha became very much superior among all the teachers at that time also. Next is the Mahakachaya. Mahakacchan was the great, you can say, disciple in the sense that he used to interpret the meaning of the teachings of the Buddha also. The technical terms which were not clear to the common mass at the time of the preaching of the Dhamma, Buddha asked Mahakacchan to go to the common mass and give the meanings of the not technical terms or naughty questions which were not made clear to the common mass by the Buddha himself. And Mahakacchan with the etymological derivation of the each word, how the word has been made, what are the roots, what are the suffixes, what are the prefixes, and how the word has come. And Mahakacchan was, you can say, excellent or skilled in interpreting the teachings of the technical terms of the Buddha. technical terms of the teachings of the Buddha also. So in that way, after interpreting the technical terms, Mahakaccayana became more popular also. And we know that he also preached some of the suttas which are available in our Majjhima Nikaya or in Sanjukta Nikaya also. And in that way, he has interpreted the teachings of the Buddha, especially related with the law of dependent origination as well as Four Noble Truth, Chattariya Sachani. And later on, we also know that Netipakarana was also composed by our Mahakaccayana. There is another text, Petkopadesh. Petkopadesh was also composed by our Mahakaccayana. And in the Netipakarana and Petkopadesh, we are having the interpretations of the technical terms in a very excellent manner, in a very skilled manner. Mahakaccayana has interpreted the teachings of the Buddha in a very, you can say, decent manner. So, since he was interpreting the technical terms and it was made clear to the common mass, and in that way it was spreading among the common mass to the you can say from village to village, nagar to nagar, janpad to janpad, and mahajanpad to mahajanpad also. So in that way, Mahakaccayana was the great expositor of the Dhamma, that is the teachings of the Buddha, the technical terms of the meanings of the Buddha. He made a very in a skilled manner. So in that way, Mahakaccayana is known as. Next is the Punna Manati Putta, was an appealing preacher also. Sometimes Buddha used to give the teachings, but it was not appealing to the common mass. How it may give the, you can say, influential speech and something like that. So in that way, Pun Manati Put was very skilled. He was appealing to the common mass also. And this, what Buddha was teaching, he used to give explanations of the teachings of the Buddha in an appealing manner. And the disciples of the Buddha used to interpret in that manner also. The next disciple was Ananda. As we know that Ananda was also cousin of our Siddhartha Gautam or the Buddha also. And he became very much close disciples also. He used to stay and he was called as a great attendant Upathakago, that he used to serve Buddha from the very morning. When he used to get up in the morning, from the early morning till Buddha was going to sleep in the bedroom or in the aram vihara, he was taking care of Buddha also. And that is why he is called as great attendant, and he was very much close to the Buddha also, and he was very much close to understanding the teachings of the Buddha also. And we also know that it was Ananda who requested the Buddha that Mahapajapati Gautami, who was the stepmother of Buddha, may be admitted to the Buddha Sangha, and then in that way, Bhikkhuni Sangha was formed. So it was Ananda, and we are quite aware that after the Mahaparinibbana of the Buddha, Ananda was taking care of the dead body of the Buddha, and all the rites and rituals were performed by the Ananda also. And after Mahaparinibbana of the Buddha also, the first Buddhist council was also held. And in the first Buddhist council, all the teachings of the Buddha, what he preached for the 45 years, he was the person who was remembering all the teachings from Sutta Pitak, Vinaya Pitak, and Abhidhamma Pitak also. And he was asked to rehearse the all teachings of the Buddha for 45 years, what he preached at the first Buddhist council also. And it is another thing that in the end he was made and he was given punishment. And Chand was another person who was also given punishment by others. And it was a tricky game of some of the, you can say, monks of the first Buddhist council. So he was, Ananda was the very great persons. And there were two types of disciples of the Buddha also. One was called as Gantadhur. Gantadhur means one who was going through the scriptures. Only the teachings of the Buddha, what he is teaching, they used to rehearse it by Mukha Patha Vasena, by the oral traditions also. They were called as Gantha. Gantha means on the scriptures. They were mainly dependent on the scriptures. Ananda was the very excellent, who was called as excellent among the disciples who were called as Gantadur. There was another disciple, category of the disciples who were called as Aranyavasi. There were some disciples who were thinking that there is no need of going through the scriptures. There is a need of going to the forest and meditate. And by meditating or concentrating, uh, one can purify himself also. And these persons were called as Aranyavasi. So Mahakasyapa, if you remember, Mahakasyapa was the first person who called Dhambam cha Vinayam cha Sangayama, that let us have the first Buddhist council and let us recite the Dhamm and Vinaya. So Mahakasyapa was belonging to Aranya, that is the forest, and there the category he was belonging, that was known as Aranyavasi. Since Anand was Gantadhur and Mahakasyap was having the Aranyavasi, there were great tussles among these two types of disciples also. And they were quarreling at some times also. So in the Buddhist council, in the first Buddhist council, there was a tricky game of Mahakasyap also in the end, since he was belonging to Aranyavasi. And those who were very much close disciples, like Anand, Sariput, Moggalan, the Aranyavasi people didn't get any opportunity to go near to the Buddha, and they did become very much close as Anand, Sariput, Moggalan were. But since they were also following the teachings of the Buddha in the sense of patipatti, that is the practice or meditation, they were also known as a disciples, close disciples of the Buddha. So Ananda contributions is great in spreading the teachings of the Buddha. And he was the person who rehearsed all the teachings related with the sutta, that is the sutta and the dhamma. So Vinay was given to the Upali also, but here Dhamma, which was having the Sutta and Abhidhamma, the responsibility came on the soldier of our Ananda. So in that way, Ananda was the foremost bhikkhu or monk in erudition, morally watchful, steadfast, and eloquent also. And he was very, you can say, morally eloquent means he was following the Kusala Dhammas, and he used to help others also, like Upasak and Upasikas also, or even Bhikkhunis also. And we know that how Mahaprajapati Gautami, at the request of Ananda, got admission to the Sangha, and there was a formation of a Bhikkhuni Sangha also. So, in that way, this was the great contributions. And when Buddha was in Mahaparinibbana stage also, the women were given a chance to see the dead body of the Buddha also. And in that way, he was charged by other groups of the close disciples of the Buddha, also like Mahakasyapa and others. So, in that way, Anand's contributions was great. He was really thinking for Bahujan Hitai, Bahujan Sikai, that he was really following the teachings of the Buddha, that how the Dhamma mm, goes to the each corner of the society, and how it becomes more popular among the common masses. So in that way, Anand was very great close disciples of the Buddha. Next was Aniruddha. Aniruddha is also very close, and he also made a, you can say, great contribution in spreading the Buddhi teachings of the Buddha also. And he was having, you can say, the Dibba Chakhu, that is the divine eyes, and he was having the possessor of the Dibba Chakhu, and through the Dibba Chakhu, he used to know that what is going to happen next, and in that way, he used to do related with the spread of Buddhism also, and how this Divachakku can be applied in spreading the teachings of the Buddha. So Aniruddha was very much close to Buddha also, and he was one of the foremost disciples of the Buddha. And due to him also, the teachings of the Buddha spread to all common masses. Then there was Upali. As we know that Upali by caste was a barber, but he was a master of Vinay also. And we know that how Buddha does not believe in the caste system, and even in his Sangha, all the persons, irrespective of any caste, color, creed, used to get admission into the Sangha. So Upali, being a barber, he also got a chance, and in that way he became very much skilled in the Vinay also. And at the first Buddhist council, Mahakasyapa asked Upali to rehearse the teachings of the Buddha of related with the Vinay, that Mahavagga, Chuluvagga, Parajika, Pachitya, and Parivar. So all the teachings related with the Vinay were given on the soldiers of our uh, Upali. So in that way, Upali was very mm, close to Buddha also, and he spread the teachings of the Buddha, and his contributions are great in that sense also. Next was Bakkali, and we are having Bakkali Sutta also. In Bakkali Sutta Majjhima Nikaya, there are teachings related with it, that yo padam passati, so mama passati, yo mama passati, yo padam janati. One who knows the law of dependent originations, he knows me. And one who knows me, he knows the law of dependent originations, that all things are subject to uh, dependent on cause and conditions. There is nothing which comes into existence without having any cause and conditions. So Bakkali was very much excellent in that way, knowing the law of dependent originations in that way also. And he is known very much having the great faith as a teacher to the Buddha also. Faith does not mean that you are going to make a refuge or you are surrendering to the Almighty God. But here, due to the our attributes of the Buddha, he used to have, Bakkali was having a great faith in the teacher named as the Buddha. So his contributions is also known in that sense, in the exposition of the teachings of the Buddha also. The next are the Nand, was the chief disciples who was very much uh, eh, skilled in controlling the senses, five senses: Chakshu Indriya, Sotra Indriya, Ghana Indriya, Jiva Indriya, Kaya Indriya, and Mana Indriya. And there is an incident also that when Buddha died at Kusinagara, Nanda was present there, and he was the elder Astavir, and he asked all the monks and nuns who were present at the time of Mahaparibban of the Buddha also, and he asked that how you have to control your senses also. So in that way, Nanda was very much skilled or very much, you can say, proficient in controlling the five senses. And we know also in the text that it was Nanda who arranged all the preparations related with the rites and rituals for the death worthy of our Buddha who died at Kushinagar. So Nanda was very much, you can say, a patient person, since he was controlling and he was following the Indriya Sambarsil. Indriya Sambarsil, that how a person has to control the five senses. And Nanda was very skilled in that also, and in popularizing the teachings of the Buddha, that how you have to control your senses. Nanda was chief among all the disciples who spread the teachings of the Buddha related with the self-control, how the our senses can be restrained towards from their respective objects also, namely Rupa, Sad, Gandha, Rasa, Sprastabhya, Dhammayatana. So these are the things, and even there were some disciples also, we are also knowing, they are known as Upasak and Upasika. So if you go through the Milinda Pahyo, Bahir Katha, we'll find that how Upasak were very much a proficient of the teachings of the Buddha also. And Upasak was also very much proficient in the teachings of the Buddha also. And we know that how the Abhidhamma was very much known to the people or ladies, upasakas, and we find in Dhamma, in Bahir Katha of Milinda Pahiyo, that how Acharya Milinda and Nagsen, there is a previous birth stories in Bahir Katha, and in that we see that how Buddha asked about how Milind says that the traders were also having proficient in Abhidhamma also. So there were so many ladies or upasikas who contributed a lot in spreading the teachings of the Buddha also. And among the nuns' theories also, there were some theories like Patachara, Dhammadinna, Ammapali. They were great proficient in the teachings of the Buddha also. And if you go through the theory Gatha, and you will find the utterances of Mahapajapati Gautami or Ammapali theory or Patachara, Dhammadina. And Buddha sometimes says that these nuns are more intelligent than the monks, bhikkhus, and they are as good as the monks also. So Buddha has also said that these bhikkhunis or nuns are able to get a state of arhataship also. So they were very much excellent also, and in spreading of the Dhamma, teachings of the Buddha, the contribution of our Mahapajapati Gautami theory, Patachara, Dhammadinna. There are so many monks, nuns. They also contributed a lot in spreading the teachings of the Buddha also. So in that way, the teachings of the Buddha, how they became more popular among the common mass of the people. So there were these were some of the examples how Buddha has given the you can say how the teachings of the Buddha became more popular among the common mass also. And even there are some Chul Bedal Sutta also, which was delivered by the nun Dhammadinna, and it was preached to the Vishakha. And Visakha Migar Mata, we are quite aware that it was Visakha Migar Mata whose suggestions were taken by Buddha himself. And to Anita Dhamma was included in the Parajika Dhamma also. So, and these two Anita Dhamma were all only applicable to the bhikkhus, not for the bhikkhunis. They were not meant for the, and since Anita Dhammas were only for the monks, and it was the suggestion of Visakha Migar Mata, and on the suggestion of the Visakha Migar Mata, this was, you can say, and in Chul Bedal Sutta, which was preached by our Dhammadinna, and it was also included in Majjhim Nikaya also. So we can see that how the nuns or bhikkhunis were preaching the Dhamma also at the time of the Buddha also, and they have been included in Majjhim Nikaya and in other Nikayas like Sanjukta Nikaya also. So some of the suttas were also delivered by the householders like Upasaka and Upasika for the development, and the some of the householders they contributed for the development of Abhidham also, because these suttas were given by our different disciples having the contents of the Abhidhamma. So in Mahaparinibbana Sutta, if you see that how Bodhipakkhiya Dhamma was preached by the Buddha in the at the time of the, you can say, Mahaparinibbana, and the great Buddha says that one who follows the 37 factors of enlightenment he can get a state of eternal bliss also. So these were meant for the Leti Upasaka and Upasikas also. And 37 factors of enlightenment were also, you can say, used to be followed by our Letis also. So since these Letis were explaining the teachings of the Buddha, they were later given expository explanations. In due course, the teachings of the Buddha were also elaborated in the form of Abhidhamma. So, in that way, the latest Upasak and Upasikas' contribution in the development of Abhidhamma is great. So, we have seen that how the teachings of the Buddha have been given in by the Acharyas, namely Sariputta, Moggalan, Mahakasyapa, how these Agga the close disciples of the Buddha, they were known as Agga and how they contributed in the spread of the Buddhism, and how the teachings of the Buddha became more popular among the common mass of the people. So let us finish here. So in the next class, we will discuss the remaining portions